Good morning, Africa and the world. Today is Sunday, the 7th of August in the year 2022, and it is another time on our program, Sunday Morning with Emmanuel Mensah. It is your divine right to know the truth to set yourself free. Today, I am going to speak to you on the topic History divides us more than uniting us. I repeat, history divides us more than uniting us. The key reason or the main purpose for which men and women we keep records of past events or what is generally called history is that future generation will look into these accounts and they will learn lessons from it. So if you look at it on the superficial level, it is really a good idea that we will keep all these accounts and then we sell them to our generation so that they will learn from it that they will not commit such mistakes. But a critical look into the lives of human beings and what we call history, analyzing history and the way people have responded to history, most of the major events that occurred in the past, it was the dedicated or the serious researcher or thinker will come to the truth that such aim or the reasons why we keep these accounts has actually hasn't materialized, but it has rather taken mankind onto the other side. And what we see is people begin to prepare themselves. They take to arms based on what happened in the past. Instead of disarming themselves, they arm themselves in preparation that in case something happened, we will be able to defend ourselves. And so they build up these weapons and they get to a point that they that were preparing to protect themselves rather take the arms and then they attack other people for other interests. And so it's a chain of reactions. Then those that have been attacked by these people also based on the history, they also begin to arm themselves. And the same pattern repeats. And so you will see that the positive sides of history, which we are supposed to look at, has been deserted, and we are only looking at it from the negative perspective. So the lessons that we are teaching men and women and even our children is to be conscious of the past events, the bad thing that has happened to our forefathers, such that they will protect themselves or they will take revenge. And so history has actually, instead of uniting us and say, hey, because of what has happened in the past, let us see how best we can unite ourselves. We are rather tearing ourselves apart. And there are some issues that happened centuries ago amongst tribes, amongst groups of people that are still dividing them even until now. But the fact is, if you are to ask any of these men as to whether they were there when such event happened, they would not even have an answer because it happened years before even their forefathers, the 2 and 3rd generation back, were actually born. But the fact is that we are preoccupied ourselves with history, that's past events, and we allow these past events to keep on dividing us, instead of bringing us together. So history, as we have it, be it recorded history, be it the word of mouth, does nothing to mankind today except dividing us. It doesn't unite us. And so when we begin to look at this, it will dawn on us that it is not about the recording and teaching of history or past events of a future generation that will bring us the peace that we are looking for. But it is about teaching and are practicing universal laws and principles, and teaching the future generation to look at things from the universal point of view that will prevent us from taking arms against each other, and that will bring us together, united as one people. So, if you look at this, the preoccupation of mankind at this time is how to unite men and women such that we become one. It's about how to, erase all these artificial barriers that we have put between each other, such that we will become one and live peacefully and allow the past things to go, because they are not the things that we have actually seen. They are not the things that we have actually observed. And as a matter of fact, some of the things that happened in the past, if you analyze it, or if we are to go back in those days, some of the things were the order of the day. And therefore, they were just living based on what they knew. And that is their basis of understanding. And normally, when two people meet, it is the higher one, the most powerful one, that overcomes the weaker one. So this is about human existence. And therefore, if we are to look at the reasons that happen, the reasons that those things happen in those days, and bring them into our current dispensation, then we are actually making a mistake. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of things that in the past were accepted as universally true, but today we are denouncing all of them. And therefore, if we are basing some of the histories that happened in the past to determine our life right now, then we are living in the past. That is the truth of life. But if we look at issues and even look at the history from the highest point of view and say that, look, we don't want this to happen, and therefore let us begin to teach our children. Let us have dialogue and teach our children to look at things from the highest point of view, that we are all equal, we are all one, and therefore there is no need for us to tear one another apart. We can build a society that is well united, that is united and all moving together as our Maker intended. And so today I am going to invoke a few words of Emerson on this topic. And the first one is that, according to Emerson, history is the action and reaction of these two, that is nature and thought. History is the reaction of these two, nature and thought. So the things that we call history, the things that happens in the past, it is simply men and women reacting to nature, that is by way of thought. And at that time, by the level of their evolution and understanding of things, they only reacted to the natural things that happened to them, and then they took a certain line of action. And so whatever we are putting across, whatever we are analyzing, it is nothing but the reaction of nature and thought. And it is the same thing that we are doing today. These events has been passed on to us, and we have to analyze them in the light of the power of thought. Whatever thought that we cast upon past events that has been handed over to us defines our reality. If we look at it from the highest point of view and say, okay, it is good to know, but now all this has happened. Today, here we are. We can reshape, we can remold our life and create a new people and then move on from these past things. We will. And on the other hand, if we decide to dwell on it and only cast negativity, then and sell it and keep on propagating them, those events will keep on crippling us and dividing us and dividing us and dividing us. And so you are not supposed to look at history as something that has to influence your life in the negative way, but look at it in a positive way. But unfortunately, men and women are more important in propagating only the negative aspect. There are a lot of good things that happen between groups, tribes, societies in the past. Those things are not even being talking about. But we are so preoccupied in documenting in vividly what happened in the past, as if they are happening today. And therefore, we are passing on to our children. And children has the ability of children to accept things and assimilate it is not as adults. And even some adults is so demoralizing. Some of the issues are so demoralizing. And so if we are selling this raw history as it's happened, some of them have even different views from different historians, and we are building these things into our children. That means we are distorting their lives. They are supposed to live their life based on the dispensation, based on the level of evolution of human existence right now. And therefore, we have to look at this. And the only thing that we have to preoccupy ourselves with in terms of teaching our children and bringing our children up is the power of thought. That everything that happens to you, everything that comes in your way, look at it from the highest point of view. And that is the nature and the kind of thoughts that you cast upon that event. Positive and constructive thoughts will lead you to a higher place. Even though that thing came to you, it will open another door for you. Negative and destructive thought will put you back, even worse than what you are reading from your forefathers, based on our current level of evolution. And so, history is dividing and tearing us apart. And then, if we go on to the next words of Emerson, according to Emerson, that in analyzing history, do not be too profound, for often the causes are quite superficial. I repeat, in analyzing history, do not be too profound, for often the causes are quite superficial. And as I was saying, there are some of the stories that when we hear, it is easy for us to classify those who were involved as evil, bad, and the way it has been recorded. But as a matter of fact, if we are to be taken back to those days and analyze it, you will see that, based on the dispensation in which they were living, that time, the causes of some of these things are superficial. It's just that men and women took the negative perspective of whatever thing that they call the causes and blown it apart into a different level that they use it to destroy themselves. So all these things that we call history, everything comes to the point or to the fact that thought is the only thing that has defined all these things. And therefore, if we are analyzing these things in the present day, our thoughts will also define us where these events will take us to. But the whole thing is, we will all become one, united, and move in one direction. And as the South African reggae musician Lucky Dube said, none of us were there when all happened. None of us were there when it happened. So if we go back in history and we talk about the wars, we talk about some of the painful things that we believe has been done to mankind, none of us were there. But we are still practicing them as if we were here. We were there when it happened. No. The only lesson we have to learn from it is to look at these things from the highest point of view. And as a matter of fact, as soon as all of us begin to look at things from the highest point of view, such that two wrongs does not make it right. Therefore, when my brother, my sister, my other group offended me, I need to have a place in my heart and forgive the person, because I know that I am the one that creates my own reality, and move on. We will create a peaceful and a wonderful community and societies for ourselves. And as we all know, that it takes two to tango. So when someone provokes you, the only way to defend yourself is to walk away. If you walk away from the person, nothing will happen. And even if the person attacks you, God has his own way of defending you. It's a matter of fact. But if you stand there and then allow the person to drag you to his level, then you have descended to that person's level and you became the same. You become the same. It doesn't matter whether you are defending yourself or he is attacking you. You are two fighters. That is the fact. So the world that we live in is a matter of knowing the understanding and applying the truth. But the fact is, we have come to a point that humanity must come together. We must come together to be one. And the only way we can be one is about de-emphasizing past events and thinking of how we will recreate a new life, a new conditions, and new situations for ourselves based on our current evolution or evolutionary states. That is the truth of life. That is the truth of fact. Yeah, so as I was saying, history divides us, and it's a fact. Our history that we have, that has been propagated and been given to us, divides us more than it unites us because we concentrate on only the negative part of it, the negative part of past events. But there are good things in some of these too. At the end of the day, whatever the case may be, whenever a situation happens to you, based on the universal law of polarity, there is always a good aspect in it. Look for the good and dwell upon it, and use that to empower and use that to recreate your new life. Whether we like it or not, this past events has already happened, and it can never be changed. It can never be changed, regardless whatever we do. But if we look at how we can bring ourselves together and live together and have a harmonious and a beautiful and a wonderful community, society, nations, or what we call the world, that is peaceful, that is harmonious, then that we are living as human beings, moving higher, and becoming one with God. And that is to live peacefully with one another. And so that is the truth of life. Let us not allow history to divide us. And in one of my past episodes, I mentioned that our history divides us, and I looked at it from the African perspective. I look at it even on the world stage. And today I'm going to expand on that. If we take on the world stage, there are a lot of situations that are happening that are not being motivated by events happening today, but being motivated by events that have happened centuries ago. One of them, if we go to the Middle East, we have the Israelis and then the Palestinians. Whatever issues that they are handling that has not been able to allow them to become one and live peacefully happened years back, centuries back. But today, this one will go and take the books, this one will also go and take the books, and they read it and analyze it, and then they clash. And religion also comes to play. They clash and they kill themselves. Every day, it's like we are having a repetition of every year events coming. So if you look on the world stage, history is dividing us more than that, more than anything, uniting us. If you look at what is happening in Ukraine, history is dividing us. The Russians and the Ukraine, they are not different. Why will they take arms against each other? But someone is thinking that there are some historical things that need to be corrected, and therefore he's basing his invasion or whatever he's doing in the other country on this past event. So these are examples of how history divides us. Go through the world, anywhere, every group of people, history and religion are the key things that defines us. But that is not where we're supposed to live. We are human beings. We are supposed to live and love one another. We are supposed to cooperate. Someone's happiness should be your happiness. Someone's sorrow should be your sorrow. So that we live and support one another. So this is the time that we have to rise up and become knowledgeable and understand that we are governed by laws. We are governed by universal laws. And these laws have no favorites. The universe has no favorites. And therefore, it's just like fire. When you put your hand in it, it will burn you. And one way that we put our hand in these laws and going against these laws is by dwelling upon past events. Past events. Someone or a group of people, if you go into Africa, we have different issues that happen. If we look at what happened in Nigeria in the Civil War, the Biafra War was based on tribal lines. Some people think that they are this and that and that, so they want to separate. This one was they came into that. It was based on the tribal lines. What if they have seen one another, that we are together? Let's see how best we can build a wonderful and a beautiful life for ourselves. It will be better. They would have created a beautiful life. Even if you look at Nigeria, even right now, what is happening there, everything is based on historical events. And therefore, it's tearing them apart. It's tearing our people apart. The North, the East, and the West. There is some kind of wedge between them that they cannot actually come harmoniously to do things. So this history is keeping on and on because everyone wants to preserve his tribe. Everyone wants to preserve whatever his ancestors have done. So that is just one example. The war that happened in Rwanda and Burundi would not have happened if men and women looked at it from the highest perspective. So what lessons are we taking from there? What lessons are we taking from there? The only lesson we have to do is not about showing our future generation what happened, but it's about teaching them how to look at things from the universal point of view, to look at things from the highest point of view that men and women, we are supposed to love one another. Whatever happened, let it go, but let us see how we can build our life and move on. But the more we keep on repeating and showing this as an example that we are educating our children, some of our children will grow to take these things in the negative way and they will repeat the same thing at another level or in a different dimension. So, teaching and practicing of history will never change people, the future generation, but teaching and practicing the universal laws and teaching and practicing men and women, children, men and women, to look at things from the universal perspective that we are all one, will change all men and women and will make us peaceful and loving towards one another. And so I can go on and give you examples and examples and examples. Even right now, in our various countries, we have tribes that they believe that they are superior. Their forefathers created empires and what and what. And therefore, they are doing everything to preserve that. Anyone that makes a comment about their tribe in a certain way faces the wrath of the kings, the queens, and all the people. So what are we saying? We are using past history. But the fact is that whatever kingdom that existed in the years past is no longer the kingdom we have now. Today we have our various countries. If you look at Ghana, we are a nation. No more on living in empire, tribal empires or whatever. We are a nation having a government, a central government, and we have all representatives. So we are one. And therefore, looking at our past history, trying to preserve all these things will not bring us together, but it will rather divide us. People are seriously protecting what they call their lands, their days, because it's their bona fide property. And therefore, we are not able to integrate, as a matter of fact. But if you come to the developed world, I always use this example. If you come to the developed world, the land doesn't belong to any tribal king or whatever. It belongs to the state. And therefore, everything that they do it as one. Everyone has the right to live and stay wherever he wants to stay without actually going to seek permission from any local leader. But these things are happening in Africa and other parts of the world. So you will see that when we talk of integration, we are unable to integrate into our lives, ourselves. And so all these things are happening because we are depending on past histories, past events. But the past events, they are only supposed to motivate us in a positive way. But when we look at all these events in the negative way that we only want to protect ourselves and prepare for any eventuality, then we are keeping on dividing ourselves. But the key point is that future events must not be sold to our children as we are doing now. It is a popular view. Whatever I'm saying is against the popular view, as I gave in my previous episode. But I can tell you for a fact that I am telling you the truth. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I am telling you the truth. That history is not anything that unites us. History divides us more than uniting us. And I can give you examples of worldviews that came that way. We accepted that eventually they've been taken and thrown into the dustbin. As a matter of fact. And even if you go back in history, Before men and women started going around, sailing around the world, Columbus and others started, the general view at that time was that the earth was a circular one. And therefore, there is a cliff, the north and the south poles. If you sail to that point, you fall off and then you die. They held on to this view. To them, that was the truth as at that time. But when when men and women like Columbus and other sailors started, they went round and came back and told them that no, it is not what we see. The earth is spherical. It's just like, yeah. So there are no cliffs. They opened the way for mankind. And therefore, today we are crisscrossing the world on ships, even some that are more, what we call it, submarines and all those things. It is a fact. It is a fact. There are a lot of views that men and women have held that are no longer with us. It is the same way that the views we are holding about past events, they are illusions. They are not real. It's just that we are looking at them from the bad lenses. But if we change the lenses that we are wearing, and we will see these things in the right way. And the right way I'm telling you is the right way is what I'm telling you. That is, look at things from the highest point of view. Yes, in our lives, particularly the black race, we have what we call slavery. Slavery happened. Slavery happened. It is something that happened. But over 400 years ago, now here we are. Should we continue to look at these issues and even trying to emotionally look at the pain that our forefathers have gone through? Now, the moment we do that, then we're going to be influenced by these events in a negative way, such that we will not be able to go past it. But if we look at it from the highest point of view, that human beings are on an evolutionary journey, and therefore, whatever happened, even though painful, it's another way for our forefathers to move on in their evolutionary journey. There are numerous men and women that went through that ordeal. But as a matter of fact, their suffering has brought you to wherever you are, has made some wonderful and beautiful things in your life right now. You have yourself and you have your life as a free man or woman. Therefore, I am going to teach my children that though our forefathers were slaves, today here we are. We are making a new life, and we are parceling this past and putting it behind us and moving forward, and such that our children will not be so emotionally attached to this event. We will free ourselves rather than keeping ourselves in this. And so history is tearing us apart, as I'm saying. And whatever disunity that is in the diaspora, particularly in North America and some European countries, is as a result of past events. Even the white race, they are also using the same thing. But you see that we are all one. If we look at these things at the collective level, the universal level, we will see that we will develop a community, society that are more beautiful. And so we are not supposed to be looking at past events as if they are happening now, but we are supposed to look at these things from the highest point of view. And that is by looking at it from the truth that the human beings are on a journey, and that is evolution. Everyone or every man or woman has his own path. Everything that happens into your life, there is a reason, and therefore your soul needs it. And that is why you went through that. We will be able to say goodbye to the past events, and our forefathers or our relatives or loved ones that have gone through this, and then we move on to our lives. The key point is that however we will analyze this history and make it vivid, and make it plain to the future generation, they cannot go back to correct this event. But they will be influenced by these events in such a way they will create another version of events. But if we teach them empowerment, if we teach them inspiration, if we teach them things that will make them get up and begin to mold and think of creating a newer life, that will be better. The human existence or your life is simply a creation. You are creating your own realities. And so I am hammering on this topic because It is so important with us Africans. We are preoccupied with our past histories. Every day we parade ourselves wherever Africans will appear. On every stage, we speak and emotionalize our past events, the atrocities, the injustice that has been meted at us. And therefore, we are trapped in it. We are trapped in it. Wherever an African leader or African personality will stand, we cannot talk without mentioning colonialism, the looting, and whatever that thing that happened. And therefore, we are not able to create a life that we want right now. That is the truth of life. Everywhere that you will go. But this point of view, this mindset is the popular view, which is not the truth. As I told you already, there are a lot of things that men and women used to hold as the truth. But as time goes on, they discover that it is not. Then they move on. It's the same thing with history. Instead of recording all these events in this way that we are creating movies, we are creating documentaries and all these things, we are burdening the minds of our children, and these things will build in some of these children that they will explode with it. They will explode with it. In that case, we are recreating the situation that we don't want. We can create peace. We can create love. We can create harmonious existence with one another, regardless of our color, regardless of who we are, regardless of whatever we call ourselves. If we look at things from the highest point of view, but not on religious basis. History and religion are the two things that are tearing men and women apart. And Africa is one of the continents that this thing is prevailing every day. We are not able to come together to talk about issues in the light of now. But what we are talking about is tradition. What we are talking about is what? So when there is something to be done, whatever you're going to do goes against the beliefs, the traditions, the history of some people. This and that, this and that, this and that, this and that. We keep on. We are trapped. And this is the time we have to free ourselves. This is the time we have to free ourselves. We have to begin to talk about some of these issues and look at these issues from the highest point of view. History must be looked at from the highest point of view. And that is by looking at it from the perspective that we are all moving forward. Therefore, the past must not control our lives. And as it is well known that people who lived in the past can never go forward. They can never do anything. They cannot ever do anything. But people who look at life in the now, regardless of what happened in my past, this is where I am. And I am going to make good use of the life that I have and make sure that I will create something beautiful and wonderful for myself. You will. We will. And therefore, this is the time that we have to rise up. This is the time that we have to educate one another. Enough is enough of dwelling on historical events. Enough is enough on using past events as an excuse for our underachievement, for whatever we are going through. Yes, those things have happened. Yes, those things have happened. But we cannot go back and change it. There is no way that any man or woman that finds himself in North America, in the U.S., for instance, can go back and change that part of his life that is not a descendant of a slave. It cannot happen. It cannot happen. And so when you begin to look at it and making peace with it, I am teaching you some universal principles. When we begin to look at these issues and make peace with them, then the peace will appear in our lives. So you see that we are looking for peace between us and our neighbors or whatever, the white people. But always as we try to create a peace, the more we get this, what we call it, confusion. Why? Because we haven't been able to come to terms and to accept whatever thing that happened in the past as something that we cannot do anything about. It has happened. It was meant to be. Therefore, let's move forward and think of how we can build nations. We can build men and women who will rise up and create a new identity, a new perspective for the black people. That is what we have to do. That is what we have to do. So let us not depend on history. There is no power in history, but there is power in the universal truth. There is power in the universal truth. There is power in the presence of God in you. You are made in the image and the likeness of God. And therefore, whatever happens in your life has no power to condemn you, to anything. But you have the power to overcome it and use that situation as a motivation to build and create a higher life. We are on a journey. Life is a journey, but not a destination. If we live our life as if this place is a destination, that whatever happens to us here, no. That is not true. We are passing through here. And as we look at things from the highest point of view, we forgive people and we move on, busy our minds on building a new and a beautiful life for us and our future children. They will come and they will build on what we have done and move on. Now, we are not thinking of what we are actually doing to give to our children. We are so preoccupied with past events. So slavery, colonialism, and all these things that have happened, they can never be taken away from our lives. And if you take the African countries, I know most African countries are even agitating that we should begin to look at adapting our own languages and that. Yes, it is true. But if you take into consideration the cost and other things, those resources that will be used for these things could be used to improve the life of the people right now. But the fact is, English, French, or whatever has come into our life. It is not by chance. If we look at it is not by chance, but it is for a reason, and therefore we will take it and move it and perfect it and see how best we can make it. We will move on and create beautiful and wonderful life for ourselves. So whatever thing that you have, that is in your life, whatever thing that is being handed over to us, that is our history, we need to look at it from the highest point of view. We need to look at it from the highest point of view. No matter what, regardless, Africans, we are practicing what we call democracy. Democracy is not our creation. And if we are accepting to practice democracy and all those things, such that our leaders enjoy this power and all the beauty that comes with it, the parliamentarians, then we should have had to accept some of the things that comes with. So the human being is not here to stay. We are moving. So let us create a life that we can hand over to our children, which is more of positive and a higher perspective than the lower and destructive perspective. That is the truth of life. So history. Today, let us begin to de-emphasize on past events and begin to look at things from the highest point of view. When we meet in our media houses, when we meet in all our places, our discussion should be now. Our discussion should be now. How can we create a beautiful and a wonderful life for ourselves? And even if we have any history to hand over to our children, that history should be only positive and constructive aspects of our life, such that it will not demoralize the children. As a matter of fact, that is the truth. I am a grown man, and I have seen some excerpts of some of the movies that comes out about slavery. As a grown person, I don't normally have the heart to watch some of these things. It comes in vivid and plain pictures, as if it is happening right now. Assuming a young man or woman watching these things on her own without any guidance, what influence will this have on the child? How are they processing all these things? But if we have preoccupied, looking at things that will build them in a positive way, and then we integrate it into ourselves, white, black, Asian, all of us moving together, living together as one, and building a society based on who we are now. All these events happened in times that they didn't have internet, they didn't have phones, they didn't have airplanes. All these events happened in the past that mankind was still at a lower level of evolution. And therefore, if we allow those events to affect us, then we are taking ourselves back. So I am not denying that all these things never happened. And I am not denying that they don't happen. But the fact is that it is not about the situation that is the problem, but our attitudes and our reaction, the thoughts that we cast upon them, that makes the difference. And that is why Emerson gives us that two things makes history, and that is nature and thought. The combination of nature and thought. Now, history is the action and reaction of these two, nature and thought. And therefore, whatever we are analyzing as history right now, it is our thoughts that we will form around those things that will recreate another history. We are also creating our history. And actually, Emerson also say that history is nothing but biography. We are all writing our biographies. You see, we are writing our biographies. And some children will also come and read our biographies. We are reading other people's biographies. The same way our children will come and read our biographies. But what are we leaving behind? But the fact is that we need to change the perspective at which we will look at history. We are supposed to look at it from the positive and constructive perspective. All these things, they are good to know. They have happened. But the only way we can prevent is to teach our children, either sides or all sides, about how to look at things from the highest point of view. And that is by looking at things in a positive and a constructive way and letting the negative and destructive go. They will deal with themselves. They will fade out of our lives. That is the truth of life. So today, that is my message for you. This is the time that as Africans, we have to rise up and to begin to look at these issues from this perspective. It is not necessarily about doing academics and doing all these kind of things. If you listen to some of the discussions and other things that goes on, some of the speeches that our leaders and whatever give to these foreigners or foreign media, whatever, there is nothing constructive apart from attack, blaming, and accusation. That is not what a leader is supposed to do. A leader is supposed to show and to give ideas, to give visions as how he is transforming his nation. Whether all these exploitations and whatever thing we are talking happen, it has happened already. It can never, the gold and other things that they have taken, they can never be brought back. But we still have more. How can we use our minds? And this is what we should be talking about. This is what we should be teaching our children, using their minds to create, using their mind to do wonderful and great things. Left me alone. History should be a subject that shouldn't be so much important. Left me alone. Our history, based the word of mouth, whatever, should only be told in a way that will be more empowering but not demoralizing. We can look at it and package it in a way that it will empower our children. All the things that have happened have already happened. And as I'm saying, the issues between the Middle East, the Israelis and the Palestinians, it keeps on and on and on and on. And we don't even know how it's going to end. But these things, the two things that stands supreme in this relationship is history and religion. And if you take these two things out of this group of people, they will live peacefully as human beings as it's supposed to be. Because no one is preserving, no one is thinking of being superior or whatever than the other. All this because they are preoccupying, preserving, and protecting things that happens when they were nowhere in the world. So it is with all of us. Everything that happens, we were nowhere there. And once again, invoking the words of Lucky Dube, that you and I were not there when it all happened. Apartheid and all those things it happened long years, and when we were not there, the mindset, the state of mind of those people, we do not know. But today, we are a different generation. And this is where we need to base our minds and everything on and begin to look at how we can integrate into one another and create a beautiful and a wonderful community, a harmonious countries, races, regions, continents, such that even at a point will come, the world will become only one race, and that race is the race of the human beings, and that is the human. We do not have any artificial classification based on color or location or how we look, but we have only one classification, and that is the body of human beings. That is my message for you. Now, may the overshadowing presence of God that keeps the stars in the open from falling on us, and that keeps the planets in their orbit such that they do not fall, they do not clash with one another. Keep you, lead you, and guide you, such that this message will fall on a fertile ground. My job is to stir some reaction in you, such that you also begin to do your own analysis. The only time that you become a living being as a human being is when you also begin to do your own analysis and figuring things out for yourself, such that all of us will begin to take a new look of past events that we call history, and such that we will not allow history to influence us on what we are doing now, but we will be influenced by our current situations and conditions that we are all facing, and we will rise up to look for solutions and fix them, such that our continent, Africa, will be a developed one, a united one, no division, no artificial division or whatever, but we are all one people, and that is the African people. And that is when we say Africa has united. As it is, we are not united. We are not united. We are so divided, and that is why we have to rise to work and bring ourselves together as one harmonious body. Once again, my name is Emmanuel Kwejo-Mensah, and I am a co-founder of the Eagle Mentality Group. At Eagle Mentality Group, we dedicate our lives and time for the teaching and propagation of information about the power of the subconscious mind and universal laws and principles. We teach men and women to look at things in the light of universal truth, and that is observing and applying the laws of the universe in their lives. We believe that with this mindset, all of us, Africans, we will rise up to create an Africa that is universally developed and united, such that all our creations will invite or will be an attraction to men and women from all walks of life onto the continent of Africa, so that we will live peacefully and harmoniously with all men and women. Africa will become the symbol of diversity. Africa will be a symbol of unity in diversity. That is that it will be to the glory of God. Thank you, and God bless you.